subsequently general.
Mr. Mark Kelly, Ms. Sabrina Fulton, Ms. Geneva Reed, Ms. Gwen Carr, Lucy Macbeth, and Mariah Hamilton. Now it gives me a great pleasure, a distinct privilege, and a supreme honor to introduce the one whose service has been her mantra all of her life. She has been an outstanding public servant all of her life. She served well as president of a senior class at Wesleyan College. She served well in the academic halls of Yale University when she received her law degree. And when she received her law degree, she did not yield to the Wall Street temptation, but went to work for the Children's Defense Fund. While she helped those who was helpless, was a voice for the hopeless, and she's always served well. She served well as the First Lady of Arkansas, served well while she was in the White House, served well as a senator, served well as a secretary, served well as a mother, served well as a grandmother. Her mantra is that she has always served well. There were two defining moments in her life that would define her passion for service. Those two defining moments had to do, she watched her mother at an early age struggle and have to take a job cleaning houses to help support the family. She learned then to have compassion for single working mothers because she saw what her mother was able to do. And then in 1968, she heard the late Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King give a speech, and that speech empowered her to do more for social service. But Dr. King had said one time that everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't need a college degree in order to serve. You don't need for your verbs and subjects to agree in order to serve. You just need to have a heart full of grace. All my brothers and sisters, a heart full of grace. And when you have full of grace, then you have love in your heart as well. Well, I present to you one now who has served well. And because she has served well, she serves with a period and not with a comma. For a period denotes end, but a comma denotes pause. She served well in the past. She served well in the present, and she will serve well in the future as our next president of these United States of America, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Thank you all so much, and Pastor Ezell, thank you for welcoming us here to Central Baptist Church. I am deeply honored to be with you and to have so many members of your church with us this evening, both here in the sanctuary and in the fellowship hall, where I hope they can hear our voices. I want to recognize a few people. You will be introduced to these extraordinary people behind me in just a moment, and I believe you're in for such a blessing when you hear from each and every one of them. So let me thank them for being here, and I'm going to acknowledge each of them in a minute. Thank you. I want to recognize and acknowledge Congressman Jim Clyburn and Mrs. Emily Clyburn, both of whom are here with us this evening. I also want to acknowledge someone who I first met here in South Carolina, in Columbia, a long time ago, when I came as a young lawyer for the Children's Defense Fund to investigate the deplorable situation of young people, young teenagers, being held in adult prisons. And that's attorney Herb Buell, who is here with us and his wife, Linda. I want to thank them for coming. Attorney Buell was the attorney who lent me his automobile, at that time a stick shift, that I drove around the state, sort of bucking and moving back and forth as I went from place to place to interview people, to gather information for the lawsuit that the Children's Defense Fund eventually filed, with Attorney Buell being involved in that. Tonight we're going to talk about two very important issues. They intersect, they are distinct, but they have grave consequences, not just for the people sitting here with me, but for all Americans. You will hear from women who have lost their children, the mothers of the movement, who have suffered as no mother ever should. You will meet Sabrina Fulton, whose son, Trayvon Martin, was followed and shot in the housing development where his father lived because he went out to buy a package of Skittles 4 years ago this week. You will meet Lucy McBath, whose teenage son, Jordan Davis, was with some friends playing music, as every teenager I ever have known does. He was killed because the music was too loud. And three mothers who lost children to incidents with the police. Maria Hamilton, whose son Dontre was shot and killed by police in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Geneva Reed Veal, whose daughter, Sandra Bland, died in police custody in Texas. And Gwen Carr, whose son, Eric Garner, was choked to death after being stopped by police for selling cigarettes on the street. That's too many deaths. Too many young lives cut short. Too many questions still unanswered. Something is very wrong when we have these incidents where kids can get arrested for petty crimes and lose their lives. Something's wrong when African Americans are 3 times as likely to be denied a mortgage as white people are. When the median wealth for black families is just a tiny fraction of the median wealth of white families. And something is terribly wrong when African American men are far more likely to be stopped and searched by police, charged with crimes and sentenced to longer prison terms than white men convicted of the same offenses. There's something really terribly wrong when little children in Flint, Michigan are poisoned by the water they drink and bathe in because their government wanted to save money. My friends, we need real justice and accountability across America. We need to face the reality of systemic racism, and we need to break down all the barriers in our economy and society that hold people back and disproportionately hold back African Americans. We need to be building ladders of opportunity in the place of those barriers. And we need to rebuild trust in our justice system. For the mothers here and for mothers everywhere, we know that they have experienced a tragedy that the vast majority of us never will. What I am so grateful for is how they are turning their grief into resolve. They've been traveling across South Carolina the last few days, but they've been traveling across America to ask for the kind of real change that we need. Now, there are many state and city officials who are already working to do this. They're having police-involved shootings and in-custody deaths handled by independent authorities. I support these efforts. Today, I'm announcing that we will provide federal resources to support this state and locally driven approach. Tackling and ending systemic racism requires contributions from all of us. White Americans, we need to do a better job of listening when African Americans talk about the seen and unseen barriers they face every day. We need to recognize our privilege and practice humility rather than assume that our experiences are everyone's experiences. I also believe that if we work together to make major new investments in communities that have been left behind and guarantee justice and dignity to every American, that will benefit all of us. I really applaud Congressman Clyburn's plan as to how better distribute federal funds so that those communities that have been left out and left behind over so many years can have a better chance to lift themselves up. Our problem with violence goes far beyond the terrible cases where the police are involved. That's why I'm deeply honored to have former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords and her husband Mark Kelly with us. The epidemic of gun violence stalking our land is another barrier holding us back. 33,000 Americans every year are killed by gun violence. Many more are wounded, as Gabby was. Gun violence is by far the leading cause of death for young African American men, more than the next 9 causes combined. Just the other night in Kalamazoo, Michigan, 6 people were killed at random. And none of us can forget the 9 faithful people murdered at Bible study in Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston. This isn't just an urban problem, as some like to say. It's a problem for our entire country. Gabby Giffords was shot while meeting with her constituents in the parking lot of a shopping mall. She was doing her job. 6 people died that day, including a 9-year-old girl who was so excited because she was going to get to meet her congresswoman. And she was standing in line to do just that. I'm very grateful that Gabby and Mark have been taking on the gun lobby tirelessly, fighting for common sense reforms. We should all join them in this effort. We need comprehensive background checks. We need to keep more guns out of the wrong hands. We need to close what's called the Charleston loophole that let the killer there get a gun, even though he should have been barred. We need to revoke the special immunity gun dealers and manufacturers have today, thanks to a vote by the Congress. They should be held accountable for their products just like any other company. And we need to crack down on straw purchasing and make it a federal crime. And for goodness sakes, we should bar people on the no-fly list, the terrorist fly list, from buying guns in the United States. I know the politics are hard. I'm well aware of that. But sometimes the hard things are the most important things to keep trying to do. We can't go on like this. President Obama has said we need to make it a voting issue, and I agree completely. So please join me in welcoming again these remarkable people who are taking this journey on behalf of all of us. I want each of our panelists to have the chance to just tell you personally and directly what brings them here tonight, why they're so committed to doing what they can, and let you have a chance to hear an extraordinary people of real courage and commitment. Sabrina, will you start?
Thank you. My name is Sabrina Fulton, and I'm the mother of Trayvon Martin. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. I know I fooled a lot of you guys because I changed my hairstyle, so I just fit right in. Let me just start off by saying the reason why we're here, number one, the mothers of the movement, the mothers on a mission, is because Secretary Clinton supported us, and we have to stand and support her. We each have a personal story, and we each have a reason why we feel the way that we do about Secretary Clinton, and that's because we met her, and I don't want to look because it's going to make me tear up. We had the opportunity to sit with her, to meet with her, and when we met with her, she walked in as a secretary. She walked in as a political figure. She walked in as a presidential candidate, but she walked out as a compassionate mother, as a compassionate grandmother, as a compassionate wife. Because there was no way in the world that she was going to be able to sit in a room with 12 different families, and each one of us had a tragic story about our sons or daughters that had been murdered as a result of senseless gun violence. The meeting took a whole nother turn because we poured out our heart. Where no other candidate would listen to us, Ms. Clinton did. Nobody reached out to us. Nobody listened to us. Nobody said Black Lives Matter until this brave and powerful woman stood up for us. I was never into politics, but now I am. And one of the reasons is because of her. Because I feel that if she can stand up against all the men that she has to go up against, I can too. And so a lot of you have seen and heard about what happened with my 17-year-old son, Trayvon Martin. Trayvon was 17 years old. He had just turned 17. He was minding his own business. He was not committing any crime. He was on the telephone with a young lady from Miami. This person decided to pursue Trayvon, to follow Trayvon, and to murder Trayvon. Trayvon was clearly profiled. The media wanted us to believe that it was about the hoodie, but you guys know that everybody wears that hoodie. It does not matter if you're black, white, purple, green, if you're African American, if you're Asian, if you're Hispanic, you wear that hoodie. Our young ladies and our young men wear those hoodies. So what was it about Trayvon? It was about the color of his skin. And we have to come to terms with that, because only when we come to terms with that will we come up with a solution about why it continues to happen. And so very simply, I'll say that it was Secretary Clinton that stood up for us. It was Secretary Clinton that met with us, that listened to us. No one took notes for her. She took notes herself. She knew about all the families that were in the room because her research team did their homework, but she heard a lot more than she probably anticipated. And we poured out our heart to her because that's our passion right now. That's our passion for the rest of our lives. These stories, as you call them, these tragedies for us, they never go away. I think about my son day in and day out. I live with this day in and day out. These mothers live with this day in and day out. And we have an opportunity to have someone that's going to stand up for us as African Americans, for us as women. I say my vote goes to Hillary Clinton.
Hi, I'm Maria Hamilton. Dontray's story wasn't in the mainframe, didn't get the national attention. He was demonized. He was just a thought to the Milwaukee Police Department, to the judicial system there. And Dontray was 31. Dontray was a young man that had a future bigger than life. Dontray talked about bringing duffel bags of money home and taking care of his family. Dontray wanted to do a digital license plate and was in the process of getting it done. And his life was stripped from him because of racism in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're the worst at everything in Milwaukee. The justice that I'm fighting for with this mother, it's across the board. It's our babies' educations. It's their lives. It's where they live. It's where they learn. It's the churches they go to. We want them to live. I'm fighting for life. Dontray was shot 14 times. He had 21 bullet holes in his body because a Starbucks manager said he was sitting too close to their stand in a public park. Broad daylight. Not bothering anybody, not asking for anything. The outfit that he had on was a $400 outfit. Jordans, Jabots. But she still seen him as a homeless black man that was disturbing Starbucks for making money. So she called the police 3 times to have him removed out of the park. They came out on both occasions, talked to Dontre, spoke with her. The second time they came out, they told her he was a citizen. He wasn't doing anything wrong. They wasn't going to make him leave. She called a beat cop that she was familiar with. He had been a beat cop in the area. They had his personal cell phone number. They had his captain number. He missed the first message, but when he got it, he instructed dispatch to reopen that situation after he had been informed that it had been closed, not knowing that 2 police officers had already been there. And they opened it, and he went to the park. He struck Dontre 8 times with the baton. It wasn't considered a weapon because Christopher Manning, the police, had it. Once Dontre felt as though he had to stop this man from beating him and retrieve the baton, it became a weapon. And his life was taken. There has been no accountability. Dontre passed away April 30th, 2014. Me and my family took to the streets, went to City Hall. The police did 80% of the investigation. 7 days before Dontre was murdered, Scott Walker, our government, actually signed a bill stating that 2 outside entities were supposed to investigate police-involved shootings. That didn't happen. They did all the interviews of the 60 witnesses. There was no footage of video. Christopher Manning said that he was hit in the head. When we went to the DA's office and saw the pictures, there were no bruises, no scars. Christopher Manning took pictures right afterwards. There were no signs of a struggle. But Dontre, brown skin, my complexion, he had 12 bruises on his body. And they say self-defense. Christopher Manning was fired by his chief for breaking Dontre's civil rights on the approach and for a legal pat-down. It was a policy issue. He was not indicted on a local level. He was not indicted on a state level. He was not indicted on a federal level. I waited 22 months to get closure and go forward. Hillary Clinton came to Milwaukee to talk with the college students at UWM. I had the opportunity, me and my next oldest son, up under Dontre, to speak with her and give her our concerns. I broke down on her shoulder. I owe her a cleaning bill. But she allowed it. At first, I was kind of embarrassed. But then she told me, I'm a mother and a grandmother, and I feel your pain. Her and her staffers have been contacting me and my family to see how I was doing, how everything was going with the case. When it was final, they called me and told me, Maria, what can we do? It wasn't high profile. I'm not here just to be on camera. I'm here because our babies are dying. The police is not being held accountable. There's laws and stipulations and legislation that protects them so they get out of their cars with their gun. The police in the United States right now, mentality is, I need to get home safe after my shift. They're not concerned about the people they engage with during their shift. And when we start making them respect us as human beings in the urban areas by coming together, standing up, and opening your eyes and seeing things with your eyes wide open, we can get the accountability that we need. And we can love and cherish and raise our families as well. Thank you.
First, I want to give my complete thanks to Secretary Clinton for allowing us to travel on her behalf around the country, or specifically here in South Carolina, to tell you our stories and to tell you why it's so important, first and foremost, to vote, but specifically to vote on her behalf. My name is Lucy McBath. I'm the mother of Jordan Davis, the young man who was shot and killed in Jacksonville, Florida, on November 23rd, 2012, what's called Black Friday. Jordan and his friends were really excited about shopping, and that's all that they were doing on November 23rd, 2012, shopping, going from one mall to the next. And in the time that they actually stopped to get chewing gum, because my son said, you guys, we're going to the next mall. If we're going to pick up girls, we need to get some chewing gum because our breath stinks. Typical for teenage boys. Also, what's typical for teenage boys is they're playing loud music, booming music. And so in that 3.5 minutes time that the boys stopped to get chewing gum, and the driver of the car goes into the convenience store to get chewing gum and cigarettes, a man, Michael Dunn, 47-year-old white software developer, pulls in next to the boys in the parking lot. And within those 3.5 minutes, he begins an argument, in particular with my son, about the volume of the music. And because he was emboldened by the Stand Your Ground law in the state of Florida, and this expansive law that is all over the country, based upon that law, being emboldened by that law, and his implicit bias, and his racist attitudes towards young men of color, he racially profiled the boys, considered that they were thugs and gangbangers. He shot 10 rounds into the car. 3 of the rounds that he shot into the car, ballistics show that he was aiming for my child, for Jordan. And 3 of those bullets that he shot into the car actually did kill Jordan instantly. The other 7 bullets, he continued to shoot at the boys as they were trying to get out of harm's way. He tracked them as if he were a policeman, tracking them as they moved out of the parking lot. I truly believe that what gave him carte blanche, so to speak, and the ability to shoot to kill, ask questions later, shoot first, ask questions later. What gave him the authority is the expansive gun culture and the radical gun laws that we have here in our country. And because the gun laws have become so extremely radical, we see disproportionately in our community, communities of color, that people are acting out their implicit biases and their racism through gun violence towards our communities. It is known that statistically that 30 times more a black man will be gunned down by gun violence more than a white man. 30 times more a black woman will be gunned down through gun violence than a white woman. And black men will particularly live 1 year less in this country because they die by gun violence. They will live 1 year less than a white male. I have had the great and profound privilege to stand on the podium with President Obama as he gave his executive orders in this country towards gun violence prevention. And being able to stand on that podium with him, I could only think what my father would think. My father was Illinois branch president of the NAACP for over 20 years. He served on its executive board, and I know that he would absolutely roll over in his grave if he knew that his grandson died by systemic racism, acted out by gun violence, the same things that he had been fighting for those last 30, 40 years in the civil rights movement. I now have to fight on his behalf. I have been watching Secretary Clinton for many, many years. I have watched her as First Lady in this country. I have watched her as Senator Clinton in this country. I have watched her as Secretary of State. I have watched her bring allies back to the fold again, back to the fray, countries that had long been forgotten about. And she has done a good thing. I have no doubt in my mind that she will execute the executive orders of President Obama. I have no doubt in my mind that she will make sure that instituted comprehensive background check legislation for all gun sales in this country. I have no doubt in my mind that she will make sure that any individuals in this country that are selling high volumes of guns, that consider themselves in the business of doing or selling guns, and they are gun dealers, I have no doubt that she will make sure that they are fully and duly licensed. I have no doubt that she will make sure that we begin to eradicate the black market selling of guns, the high numbers of black market guns that are infiltrating our cities, and most of those guns are the ones that are being used against communities of color. I have no doubt that she will do everything in her power to make sure that she is keeping guns out of the hands of dangerous criminals, the mentally ill, and definitely making sure that she is putting into place common sense measures in our existing gun laws. She's not against the Second Amendment rights for people to bear arms. Make no mistake about that. But she understands that with the Second Amendment rights, the people have to have common sense measures put in place. Basically, I know that she will execute gun, and I don't say gun control because it's not about controlling your guns, but gun violence prevention, basically to save us from ourselves. I do know that she will make gun dealers and gun manufacturers accountable for the numbers of guns and the immunity that they have in this country towards what's happening in the gun culture. So I stand here before you, sit here before you this evening to say I have no doubt that she is the candidate of choice. I have no doubt that she cares about what's happening in our communities and the nation at large. I have no doubt that she is the candidate that will protect and serve the constituents that have placed her in office. And I have no doubt that if my father were standing here with me today, he'd say, well done, because you're making the right choice.
Good evening, everyone. Giving honor to God, who is first in my life. I'm here today to endorse this wonderful woman. Just like my fellow mothers said before me, we have a personal experience with her. We didn't have to go looking for her. She came to us, okay? Not one other presidential candidate even considered us. And Secretary Clinton, she reached out to me several times before the meeting in Chicago. Her staff, they constantly called me, told me anything that I need to call them, and they would see what they could do. And at first I was saying, well, why are they calling me? I just, no one else had reached out like that. No other elected official had reached out like that. So how you get leery sometime, because what's going on? But all in all, there was no catch. She was just genuinely concerned about all of our cases. And she has proved that time and time again, even after the meeting in Chicago. She had follow-up letters, telephone calls, so it wasn't like this was an exploitation of us mothers, because as you listen to the other mothers, we can't be exploited. All right. Yes. As you all know, you all seen the tape. My son, Eric Garner, died on July 17th, 2014, by the hands of police officer Pandaleo and 5 other police officers. Let's not leave them out. Everybody knows about police Pandaleo, but it was 5 other officers too, as my son laid on the ground dying, saying, "I can't breathe." 11 times he said, "I can't breathe." But the disconcerted officers, they chose to take his life. And to add insult to injury, there was no indictment. We had a full video showing that my son's rights, his civil rights, his equal rights, and his human rights were violated. But we didn't get an indictment. Where is the justice? What kind of world do we live in? That day, I will never forget as long as I live. I have yet to see the full tape, the full video. But from what I've seen, it plays over and over in my head. It's like a reoccurring nightmare. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, it's worse than a nightmare, because I never wake up. But at first, I could do nothing but take to my bed. I didn't want to get up anymore. They had killed my son, my firstborn, for no reason. He was not armed. He was not committing any crime that day. He had just broken up a fight. He was targeted. And I say to you, if Eric Garner was a white man in the suburbs standing on the corner selling cigarettes, it would not have gone down like that. But because of my family, first of all, they were there for me from beginning to end. Some good people. I had the National Action Network. I had the Justice Committee. I had a lot of people that came afterwards and gave me the strength to get out the bed. But foremost, it was the Lord. He talked to me and told me, are you going to lay there and die like your son, or you're going to get up and you're going to uplift his name? And I thought about it. And I thought about there is so many other young men and women out there just like me that is faceless and nameless. And I said to myself, well, my case was very high profile. Every American has uttered the name Eric Garner. So now I have to be the voice of the voiceless, because we cannot take this anymore. We have to get up and do something about it. We can't stay in our comfort zone anymore. We have to step out of the box. I never thought I would be up here. I never thought I would be an activist. I never thought that I would be in front of you making this statement. But it is what it is. So I say to you today, I had to turn my sorrow into a strategy, my mourning into a movement. I took my pain, and us mothers, we empowered each other. So my son's death would not be in vain. And I will walk, speak, rally, do whatever it takes until my voice is heard and until justice is served. That's why I ask all of you to vote and to pick the right candidate. And I think the right candidate is Secretary Clinton. She is the one for us. She will stand with us. She will be with us and try to change policies. And again, I endorse her because she endorsed us first. All right. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. And now you see why we call her Mama Gwen. I am Geneva Reed-Ville, the mother of Sandra Bland. And for those of you who don't know, it has been more than a tough road. It has been more than a extraordinary journey. I often tell people that to sit among these mothers and to know what pain really is. You know, you come across people and people don't know what to say to you. You know, when you talk about in 2015 getting a phone call that your daughter, 6 feet, is found hanging in a jail cell from a 5-foot-something partition. Not only does that not add up, something is wrong with that. She was unlawfully arrested while she was down in Texas on a job interview. She did get the job. She was going to be a student ambassador at her old alma mater, Prairie View A&M. Sandy was extremely smart. Sandy was a young lady who just said, listen, I know my rights, and I'm not going to allow you to put your foot on my neck because I know what you're not supposed to be doing. And so when she was unlawfully stopped and arrested, there was no, clearly for the entire world to see, the tape was put out. There was a bystander's tape, which was, thank God for that, that we were able to hear, because there's never any audio on these tapes that seem to come out from the other side. But thank God for that video that showed the whole world you can be doing absolutely nothing because she pulled over because she was targeted and the officer sped up behind her, so she's pulling over to let him over. So she's now arrested for, pulled over for failure to signal. But she ultimately, after the stop became, there was a shift in the stop, she was charged with assault on an officer. The family never saw any assault on the officer. I don't know if anybody ever saw any assault on an officer. But because of what she was charged with, she was put in jail where she should have never been. And it was indicated that she should be placed separate and apart because of the violent nature. Sandy was merely minding her own business. And Officer Encenia could not take it. He had an ego situation going on that day. And so as a mother, I say to any officer and to anyone who is here to serve and protect, make sure that that is what you're doing and you're not isolating and neglecting. That is what I say to you. Because I know for a fact, if your boss says, my guy was wrong, you're wrong. But at the same time, because of the way our justice system works, 7 months later, the gentleman has now been indicted on a perjury charge, okay? But he's still being paid, okay? He's still on payroll, regardless of the fact that they said the termination is in progress. And so when, as a parent, you say, well, how long is the process? How long is it? Well, we don't know. It could take a year. It could take months. We don't know. Yes, absolutely, he was dead wrong, but yeah, guess what? You don't get any justice right now because he needs a fair trial, okay? So I say to you as a mother, these mothers have all talked about the time of separation that we had to have from the world. We are grieving. We had to grieve in the open. And so when you didn't see me at first, I was actually in a season. And I tell people everywhere I go, there are 5 seasons: winter, spring, summer, fall, and the season of shut up and sit down. And so I was in that season when you didn't see me. I was literally in the house. I know what you're talking about. Blinds closed. Darkness everywhere. All you could do was cry. And you would have thought that myself, Cornel West, and Don King had the same barber. And so there was no way I could step out of the house at that time and tell the story, because what you would have heard would not have been what should have come out. So I say to you, we sit here today, and what I called a mess for a long time, because I was very angry, and I'm still angry. Don't mistake it. Don't let the suits fool you. Don't let the smile fool you. Don't let the peace fool you. I am very angry, but I'm not angry enough to riot. I'm angry enough to vote for this lady. Okay. And I'll tell you why. Just as a mom, and I'm looking at my sisters, these are some bad sisters right here. I'm telling you, they are. I say I am honored to be on a stage with them, but what I used to call a mess has turned into a ministry, and then I got a chance to meet these marvelous mothers, and now we are in the Mothers of the Movement. And so I am grateful for the opportunity. But Secretary Clinton, I met her at the Congressional Black Caucus. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who has been awesome from day one. Day one. She had somebody call my family and say, hey, we're not taking this, from day one. So she introduced me to Secretary Clinton at the CBC. And Secretary Clinton, you know, I'm going, okay, oh God, Mr. Secretary, oh Jesus. So I go and we're introduced, and she was just as calm and smooth, and she held my hand and she looked right in my face and she said, what do you want? What do you want out of this situation? Now, we're in a room full of people. This is the secretary. I'm so excited, she didn't even know it, but I'm trying to be real cool. I'm like, well, let me, you know. So I said, you know, I want justice for my daughter. And justice is something different for each of us, I am sure. But nonetheless, justice means that it's time for just us to stop getting justice. That's really what it means, okay? So after that, she came and she met with us, and you want to talk about just someone who walked in. She needed no introduction. We all knew who she was. She walked in, being who she is, sat with us, knew every story didn't rush us, allowed us to say everything we needed to say, asked us what we would like to see done, and told us, you guys would be really strong as a unit, So we're thinking, okay, Secretary, we hear you. But we heard her, but each of us had our thing going on. And when I tell you, today, I could go in my dining room, take my shoes off and say, Secretary, come on over and have a seat. And she would be at home. That is the type of intimate feeling that I felt sitting in that room with her. There were no airs, she didn't allow the media in, which was awesome. So there is no exploitation here, okay? I am sick and tired of hearing that. I am a little over 50, and I gotta tell you, there is no exploitation here. There are no payments being made. There are no secret emails about this, okay? Right? I'm just saying. Please understand that she followed up. She told all of us before she left that room, she said, hey, she was already late running for the next function she had to go to. But she didn't. We took our photos. She was just very genuine. You cannot fake compassion. You cannot fake genuine. You cannot fake the fact that you care. I don't care if it's in the 9-month span of a window of an election. You can't fake that. And so she has proven that. So when people say to me, why Hillary? I say, why not? And I don't think that there is a better, more qualified individual to get the job done. And so as we sit here, yes, we are her cheerleaders, absolutely. No, we are not being coerced. You cannot take our personal interaction and turn it into a public lie because we're telling you this is what has happened for us. And so when I say to you that I made the decision to support Secretary Clinton, it is because she is also mom, grandma, but she has so many other titles that she proved herself in. And so I don't have to go back and tell you what she's done. Check it out on the internet. Okay? Honestly. And to be able to sit here and endorse her, it is an honor. It is an honor. And so I will tell all of you before we get out of here today, we are serious when we tell you, you do not have an option not to vote. You don't. Okay? There is no option. All right? You have no time and no right to complain if you don't get out to vote. Okay? If you are tired, if you are angry, get angry enough to get to the poll. Take someone with you. If you know that there are a group of teens hanging on the corner, go get those teens and make sure that they're registered to vote. And let them know why this is important. We are going to have a situation if we stay home. We're going to have a situation if we don't vote for this woman. Hey, that's where my vote is going. Okay? So let's not be misunderstood. I would not be out here far from Chicago, okay, wasting time if it wasn't important for us. So we are running from place to place to place because this is serious. It is critical. We have 9 months to put her in. She's the new baby. You know, when you're pregnant, you're expecting this baby. So that's the baby right there. Okay? So, hold on. Let's take this 9 months and let's deliver this baby. Let's turn what's been a long history into her story.
Hello, everybody. I am not a mother, but I will tell you a story anyway. It was about 5 years ago. that Gabby was meeting with her constituents in a supermarket, a Safeway grocery store. You know, Gabby was the kind of representative that tried to govern from the middle, to try to, reach across the aisle to get things done on behalf of her constituents and the American people. And she and her constituents were met that day in the parking lot by a young man with a gun who was clearly mentally ill and should not have been in possession of that firearm. He shot Gabby first, giving her a serious traumatic brain injury, murdered 6 others, including, as Secretary Clinton mentioned, a 9-year-old girl who had very high-minded ideas about service and democracy and wanted to meet Gabby. And she was next in line, and they never met. Gabby was in the hospital for 6 months. I was commander of the space shuttle at the time. While she was in the hospital, I did my final space flight of Space Shuttle Endeavour. About 6 months after being injured, Gabby got out of the hospital. She resigned from Congress about 6 months after that. That following summer is when the shooting in Aurora happened, where 12 people died, 58 injured in about 30 seconds, about twice as long as what happened in Tucson. That was when Gabby and I first started to think about this issue a little bit differently. How did we get to this point as a nation where we have 15 to 20 times the death rate from gun violence of any other industrialized country? How did we get to the point where something like 85% of all children who die from gun violence in the developed world die here in the United States? And it's complicated. You know, there isn't one thing, there isn't one single thing that we could change that would result in some of us not being on the stage here tonight. It is a very complicated and complex issue. It is incredibly political. It is incredibly driven by money and politics. And it's driven by a very powerful corporate interest who is very, very good at what they do. And the result has been that we currently have a Congress that is in the grip of the gun lobby. And it's not only Congress. It is state legislators, it is governors, it is city councils, it is mayors. It often also happens to be the President of the United States. Not currently. But it has been in the past. And I think what all of us need to recognize is that elections matter. So Gabby and I took a look at all the candidates who are running for president. And I think, as we all know, there are a lot of them. There are less every single day, which is good. But there are a lot of them. And we looked at their records on this issue. And you know, it is very clear, and it doesn't take long to figure this out, that there is only one candidate that has the record and the experience to stand up to a very powerful corporate interest. So that's why Gabby and I are here today to encourage all of you to get out and vote. It's so important. It is the most important thing I think any single individual does, especially in a presidential election year. So, and we know, you know, obviously everybody in here would not be here tonight if they were not going to vote for Secretary Clinton. So what's more important than that is you get your friends to get out and vote. Find the friend that you think is going to vote for somebody else and change their mind. Now, Gabby has thought a lot about this issue as well. And it is, you know, she takes this stuff very seriously. She served in Congress for 2.5 terms. Before that, she was a state senator. She was a state legislature. She really cares about this issue. She's also a gun owner, and I'm a gun owner. And we're supporters of the Second Amendment. At the same time, there are things we can do to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, people who are dangerously mentally ill, domestic abusers. There is a lot we can do, there's a lot you can do, and there is a lot a President Clinton can do. And Gabby is going to tell you why that is so very important.
Hello, South Carolina. Great to be here today. I'm here to talk to you about Hillary Clinton. Hillary is tough. She is courageous. She will fight to make our families safer. In the White House, she will stand up to the gun lobby. That's why I'm voting for Hillary. Speaking is difficult for me, but come January, I want to say these 2 words, Madam President.
Oh. Yeah.
You know, the courage and the commitment, turning sorrow into strategy, mourning into a movement, is just such a great message for everybody. Something that I hope you will take with you when you leave here tonight. Something that is, yes, important for each of us up here, but should be important for all of us, every single one of us. And I am absolutely determined that together we will get justice, we will reform the criminal justice system, we will provide accountability for those in positions of power and responsibility. We will make progress toward common sense gun safety measures to deal with the gun culture and the epidemic of violence, to keep guns out of the hands of those who should not have them in the first place, and to look out for one another, to show more kindness, more respect for every human being. Every single one of us deserves nothing less than that. So I thank these extraordinary mothers, and I thank Mark and Gabby for being with me tonight, but I really hope that this is the beginning, that this is a movement, that yes, it does result in change, and it does bring more people, as President Obama said, to consider guns and violence as a voting issue. Something that will motivate you and those you know to turn out on Saturday for the South Carolina primary, to turn out in November, and to work together to make the changes we deserve to see. Thank you all so much, and good night.